On page 18, we continue with the before the match rules, and these regard the match setup specifically. At the top of the page, you'll see the general diagram of the field layout where the home areas are marked off and the left and right launch areas are marked off because they will be referenced heavily in these rules. So one of the rules we have here is about team equipment. Remember, that's all the materials you bring with you. Has to fit in the 2 launch areas. So if you have 10 things with you, you need to make sure they all fit within these areas. If you have more things that won't fit, you can't use them. You have to leave them at home, leave them out for the match, whatever. But you specifically have 12 inches of height you can use. So if you can get them all in and stacked up to 12 inches, that's the area of space you have. So you have that volume to hold things in. Now there is this note here about if you can fit it all into just one area, you get bonus points, and we'll talk about that. But if you want to use equipment, it has to fit under 12 inches in both home areas. So if you have anything that exceeds that, you got to leave it out. You won't be given additional storage space. Anything you're not actively using during a match, when you're not using it, has to fit in one of the home areas. So again, this area, this area, this area, this area are the home areas. So for that reason, you won't get additional storage and you can't bring your own. Everything has to be on a home area or in the hands of the technicians. So there are, number rules here about all that, so pay attention there. The inspection happens at the start of each match, and this is when the referees make sure that all of your equipment fits in those areas so that if you change between match 1 and match 3, they can see it. During that time, after you've passed inspection, you can divide things up however you like. Your equipment can go between the 2 home areas. Some of the loose mission models can also be divided up that way too. We'll talk about that. So sometimes we'll hear this called field setup, but I would refer to the field setup section for that. After you have all your stuff divided up, then you place your robot in whichever launch area you want to start from. So if your first launch is happening on the left side, get your robot all set up right there, ready to go. If you're starting from the right side, do that, get that ready to go. It doesn't matter which one you go with, just make sure you pick one and go with it. This is also the time when the team can ask referees to check anything on the field. So this is a very critical step for team members because coaches aren't generally involved at this point. This is between the students and the referees. And what you're looking for is if your technicians see anything on the field that they think is not set up right or is slightly off, this is their chance to tell the referees, hey, can we look at this? We think this isn't right. If you have something on the field that is not set up correctly and you play the match like that, whether it's in your favor or not in your favor, it doesn't matter after the match. This is your chance. So but prior to the match, it is up to the technicians to say, hey, I don't think this is right. So make sure your team is ready to know to check their models, because this is their one chance to say, hey, can we look at this? I don't think it's right. And when I say that, we're going to talk and ask the referees. We're not going to just reach out on the table and grab things. And this kind of plays into your core, your gracious professionalism points. Practice with the students. Like, how do you interact with other people to say, hey, we want to take a look at this? How can you do it? In a gracious manner, so that you're not being mean about it. And professionals, like, hey, we need to look at this so we can give our team our best chance we can. After all that set up, we get into Rule 4, and Rule 4 is listed in the New This Year section. It's kind of new this year. Last year it was added as a team update, and so this year it was added just straight into the rules. Your team members have to be divided between the 2 home areas. So if you've got 10 kids on your team, you have to split them up between the 2 home areas. You can go 2 and 8, 3 and 7, 6 and 4, however you want to divide them up, as long as there are at least 2 on each side of the field. It doesn't matter how many of your 10 are on each side, but you have to have 2 on each side. Now, if you don't have enough, and that applies to teams of 4 or more. If you don't have enough team members, if you've only got 2 or 3 kids on your team, then you divide them up a little bit differently. But the idea is you want 2 technicians at each launch area, at each home, and you want the rest of the team still divided between left and right. During a match, once a student is on the left or on the right, they can't switch to the other side. So that's important to know here. So during a match, these members will be able to trade off. So like if you've got, let's do a perfect division where you've got 10 kids on the team and you've divided them 5 and 5. So there's 5 over here and 5 over here, which means there's 2 at the table, and then there's a group of 3 off behind on each side. So there's 5 and 5. These 2 members can swap with any of the members in this section, and these 2 members can swap with any of the members in this section. So each side of the field, you should have 2 students, 2 technicians at the table, and the rest of that side kind of waiting to be swapped in or swapped out. And you can't go left and right. That's not allowed. So once you're on the left, you're on the left. Once you're on the right, you're on the right. Now, that's true. All that's true is if you've got at least 4 students on the team. If you've only got 3 students, then you're going to have 1 student on the left and 2 students on the right, or 1 student on the right and 2 students on the left. So if you only got 3 students on the team, you'll split them 1 and 2 or 2 and 1. If you've only got 2 students on your team, then you'll split them 1 and 1. So any number of students more than 3, you're going to have 2 on either side with the rest waiting in the wings. So if I have, let's say my 10 members, I could divide them up like, let's say 8 and 2. Let's try 8 and 2. So if I divide them up, and I'll erase more of this, just so we get some better writing space. Let's say that I've got 8 members over here and just 2 members over here. That means I've got a group of 6 students, 6 technicians ready to go, and I don't have any over here, so there's nothing in here. So these 2 will be at the table the whole match, but these 2 are able to swap in and out with these 6. So if that's how you want to divide it up, let's say that, you notice that you're starting almost all of your missions from the left side, so it makes more sense to have more of your technicians on the left, then that makes sense to divide it up this way. But again, those are rules, and this is kind of intended so that we get more of our team members participating in the actual robot game as technicians. So again, you can divide up your students however you like. Once they're on the left, they stay on the left. Once they're on the right, they stay on the right. You have to have 2 technicians at each side the whole time, unless you don't have enough members on your team. So if you have 3 members on your team, it's 2 and 1 or 1 and 2. If you have 2 members, it's 1 and 1. And in First LEGO League Challenge, we don't have a team of fewer than 2 students because it takes at least 2 students to be a team. So those are your match setup rules in terms of what you're doing to get ready at the start of the match.